Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Rock Fantasy Files on the Rock Fantasy YouTube channel. Tonight, we revisit the year 1998 to talk about some death metal. We're going to discuss 6 albums that are celebrating 25th anniversaries in the year of 2023. In alphabetical order, sort of, I believe. The first album that I'm just going to get a little description of each album that we're going to be talking about, and we're going to rate them and our favorite thing from number 1 to number 6. First one we'll talk about is Cannibal Corpse with Gallery of Suicide. It's the 6th studio album by American death metal band Cannibal Corpse, the first to feature former Nevermore guitarist Pat O'Brien with George Kampfgrinder on vocals, Jack Owen on rhythm guitar, Alex Webster on bass, and of course Paul Mazurkiewicz on drums. I think I pulled it off. Produced by Jim Morris at Morris Sound Studios. The second album, kind of doing this in alphabetical order, is Death, Sound of Perseverance, the 7th and final studio album by Death. It featured a whole new lineup with only Chuck back on vocals and lead guitar. Joining him were Shannon Hamm on lead guitar, Scott Clendenin on bass, and Richard Christie on the drums. And it was also produced by Chuck and Jim Morris. We have Gorguts Obscura, the third full-length album by Canadian death metal band Gorguts, with a lineup of Luc Lemay on guitar and vocals, Steve Hurdle on guitars and vocals, Steve Cloutier on bass, and Patrick Robert on drums, recorded at Studio Victor and produced by Pierre Rimillard. Then we've got Incantation with Diabolical Conquest, which is the third studio album from the American death metal band Incantation, and it featured Danielle Cocciardo on bass, guitars, and vocals, John McAtee on guitars.
Oh shit!
Right? Did I do that correct?
Yeah, you did. Yeah. I didn't realize it. Yeah,
And Kyle Severin on drums, and it was produced by the band and with some help from Bill Korecki.
Yep, Bill Korecki. Yep.
And then we're moving on to the 5th album we're going to talk about is Morbid Angel with Formulas Fatal to the Flesh. It's the 5th studio album by Tampa, Florida's Morbid Angel, the first to feature Steve Tucker on bass and vocals, with Trey Azagoth on guitars and keyboards, and Pete Sandoval on drums, and it was produced by Trey and Mark Prater. The last album we're going to talk about, but not the least, is Nile Amongst the Catacombs of Nephron Ka, the debut album from Nile, with the lineup of Carl Sanders on guitar and vocals, and Chief Spires on bass and vocals, and Pete Hamara on drums and vocals, produced by Bob Moore and Earl Sanders. So those are the 6 contestants for this crazy 6-way 1998 25th anniversary death metal episode. And we've in the room tonight, we've got Count Ralphus, of course, back again. We've got Miles Bergeron from Miles of Metal. We got Ovi from Norway staying up all night. And we've got Ed Farsley from Armageddon Productions. We've got our scorekeeper tonight, and from the Mighty Aggression, Sasquatch Barth. And of course, no introduction needed, but we've got John McAtee from Incantation tonight. So, of course, he's going to have to talk about Incantation, and we're going to have to rate Incantation against these other great albums and still be very polite to John.
I'm from New Jersey. I'm used to being brutalized. Yes, it's okay.
So I think I'm going to go in order tonight from Count Ralphus to Miles to McAtee to Ovi to Ed and to Sasquatch, because he's keeping score. And then I'll give my picks at the very end. So, Ralphus, you're always on first. I don't know. Maybe next week we'll have to switch it around. But you're going to go first. You're going to talk about briefly these 6 albums. Maybe give us maybe 2 songs from each, and give them in an order from the bottom to the top. You told me just before we went on air you weren't sure still of the order, so pressure's on, man.
Yeah, damn. Yeah, this is one of the hardest ones I think we ever did. Man, I love all these albums. I've seen all these bands on tour around this time. Shit. I guess
who's coming in last?
Number 6. All right, number 6. I'm gonna go with Cannibal Corpse.
Wow.
I love all the Cannibal Corpse albums, but this is really hard. And throughout the week, I tried to listen to these on my way to work and on my way home from work, but I wasn't writing down songs as I was
Okay.
going. And all the songs are great on all of these, but I'm gonna have to go without like picking songs for
That's
this one
fine.
because yeah, I just couldn't do it. I rate this album an 8. I'll say. I don't know if that's how you're going to keep the score from a
I mean, you
rating.
can't do that or you can't do that. If you made notes on it, please do. If you don't have, I mean, we don't have to do that because we're going to rate them in order too. So whatever you got. So if you want to
what's
do
your
numbers,
number 6? Ralph, what's your number 6?
I'd say Cannibal Corpse
Okay.
for number 6. Okay, so damn, number 5. Damn, sorry, I'm gonna have to go with Incantation for number 5. I love this album. I thought Daniel was great as a vocalist on it. And,
I used to have a good friend too, known as Count Ralphus.
used to have a good friend. Yeah.
No, that's cool.
I was like saying we shouldn't have this on here unless John was on tour. Then we should have did this without. It's
That's
a great
okay.
album. I give it this a 9. You know, I mean,
Just
there's
think
no
if
bad
you-
Incantation albums, and this
Just
one's
think, John,
a
if you
solid
went
album.
on, you would have been 6. Sorry, Ralph.
I love how Unheavily Skies, the instrumental goes into United in Repugnance. I thought that was great on here, you know. I love all the songs on here. It's got that Autopsy kind of feel to it all, you know. It's different than all. It is a lot different than the rest of these albums that are a lot sharper, kind of like faster kind of stuff. Then I like the slower fucking heavy shit that Incantation always does. But then all right, so now I'm gonna go with
Number 4.
I'm gonna go with Morbid Angel, Formula's Fatal to the Flesh. Again, I'll give this a 9. I love this album. I forgot how good it was. There's no bad songs on this. They really didn't miss a beat when they got Tucker in there. I seen them on that tour. I thought they were great. I thought Dave Vincent was starting to get pretty weird before he left there, being like in the Genitorturers, which I like, but he wasn't that death metal lion that he was for the first 3 albums. He started to kind of lose it a little bit. I thought it was like a good breath of fresh air when this album came out. I really love it. I think it's an underrated album. Now I'm gonna go with Gorguts, Obscura. I love this album. It's my favorite Gorguts album. I love the first 2 albums, but they were more like straightforward death metal albums. With this album, they were like listening to a lot of Ripping Corpse or something, but they just got really weird, and it's such an original sounding album. I really love it. Then down to the last 2, man, this is hard. I'm gonna have to go with Death. I seen him on this tour. I thought Richard Christie did a great job on the drums. I love the way his vocals sound on this. It's such a clear production. I always preferred the first 3 albums, but then I kind of skip all the way over to this last album in my order of ranking Death albums. It's my 4th favorite Death album. A lot of people might disagree with that, but I really loved it when that album came out. And number 1, I'm going to go with Nile. This is my favorite Nile album. And I thought Chief was the best frontman they had. I was really disappointed when he left the band. I'm wearing my Nile tour shirt from that tour.
Wow.
They were fucking great. Chief was such a cool guy. I went down to Randolph, New Jersey to see him on this tour. I forget who they were playing with, and I got to meet them and stuff, and they were really cool. And then when they came to the Chance, like the next year, Chief came right up to me and like knew my name and like remembered me, and then invited me on the tour bus and got to like hang out and drink with them guys and stuff, and just great memories from that time era. I'm pretty sure Incantation even toured with them way back then too, right?
Yeah, a lot of the touring we did for Diabolical Conquest, they were our support band for that.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's what.
Then we opened up for them like 2 years later because they blew up, you know. Which we knew it was going to happen. It was so good, the album.
Yeah,
And
it's cool. All these years later, you're still touring with them. You know, that's fucking awesome. They're
yeah,
such
and
a great band. But
yeah, one thing I have to say about Chief, yeah, Chief was a really nice guy, one of the coolest guys. You're 100% right with that. It was to me, it was a real sad time when he, I don't know, when he was either fired or left the band, whatever. It was just a real bummer because he was really one of the greatest people. I haven't seen him for years. I really miss him.
yeah, I wonder what happened to him. He was such a great front man. He kind of had like
Yes.
that Cronus vibe up there, but for like brutal death metal. He was like a brutal death
Yeah.
metal Cronus.
Yeah.
And yeah, I always wondered what happened to him. I would have followed whatever else he got into, and
Well,
Niall
one
ended up
second.
doing-
Oh, two. I know. Do you know? I don't know if we ever talked about his station, but do we know where he is now? Did I tell you guys, or did we talk
No,
about it?
I don't believe so.
He plays in Blackfoot now.
He does?
Yeah, he plays
Wow.
bass for Blackfoot. Blackfoot like franchised out or something like that with their band, and
Mhm.
he's the bass player for Blackfoot now.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
I
I only found out about this from the Nile tour we did.
Oh, wow.
They were telling me that he played in Blackfoot, and I'm like, I got to go see Blackfoot for sure now. You know?
I know Blackfoot had completely changed. I mean, we're switching over into Southern rock as we're talking about this, but I know Blackfoot, of course, had Ricky, from it's in Skinner now. It was
Yeah.
his band, and then it became Blackfoot, and they were playing more of a metal style a few years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Not really doing the Southern rock. It had
Oh.
more of a rock and roll or metal edge to it, but I'm not sure as we sit here in 2023 if that's still true, if they're doing the old Blackfoot songs. And
Is he related to Jackson's, to like the original like Blackfoot member, or no? It's just a coincidence.
Oh, well, how he got the gig? I don't know how he got the gig. I haven't spoken to him about it. And
Because yeah, there's an original member. I think his name is Jackson Spire.
yes,
oh,
you're
well,
correct. You're correct. So maybe
he-
this could
yeah.
be his son.
because they're from like yeah. I mean, I think some of the guys, at least in Blackfoot, are like Greenville, South Carolina, where they're from. So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
some kind of connection. I don't know, but I was just surprised to hear about that because I haven't followed Blackfoot for years. I mean, I remember some of the old Blackfoot stuff, but I didn't even think to like look for anybody I knew in Blackfoot. It wasn't even a thought.
I was looking on Encyclopedia Metallium right now. It says that he is a bass player in a band called Temple of Thieves from 2010 till present. And also Greg Payne and the Piedmont Boys. He's doing bass 2012 till present. So he must have a couple things out there he's doing.
Yeah, he was great. He was such a great front man, and I love all the little intro stuff that they do on this album. They give such an atmospheric this album, and it's by far my favorite of the Nile. I love all the Nile stuff, and you always seem to, like Incantation, even with the lineup changes, they always kept it like true to their original sound. But something about this album just really stands out to me. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Nile as my number one. That's it.
Thanks, Ralph. And your hard work is over now. You can sit back and listen to what we all have to say. We're going down to Louisiana and visit with Miles and Miles of Metal and put the Southern perspective onto this death metal battle.
Yeah, so I'm with Ralph. I love all these albums. I think all these albums are top tier albums. And 1998 was, to me, an underrated year for death metal. I think a lot of good albums came out in 1998, and these are some of the top ones. But getting into this real quick, number 6, I'm gonna have to go with Death, Sound of Perseverance. I don't hate this record whatsoever. I know some people, kind of look down upon it, but I really do love this record. I got the gatefold right here. It kind of goes into, this is the repress, so it kind of goes into like it goes into like about the time period of Death around this time, how Chuck was looking to go into Control Denied, and he kind of had to do this record for Nuclear Blast to fill out a contract stuff so he can do Control Denied. But I like his vocals on here. Some people I see get turned away from this album because of his vocal style, but I really do enjoy his vocals. But going back and listening to these 6 albums, this is the one that I kind of was like least interested to listen to. I love the songs, but sometimes I feel they're a little bit too long. And but it's still a great record. 3 songs I would pick: To Forgive Is to Suffer, Spirit Crusher, an awesome song. And my favorite song off of here is hands down Flesh and the Power It Holds. It's still a great album. I would give it a 7 out of 10 in my personal opinion. But it had to come somewhere, so I'm gonna put it at 6. Number 5 was kind of hard because these number 5 and 4, I went back and forth. Even today, I was really back and forth with these two. But number 5, I'm gonna go with Gallery of Suicide by Cannibal Corpse. Like Steve said, the first album with Pat O'Brien. I think him and Pat O'Brien and Jack Owens' guitars on this record are magnificent. I think they work really well together as a duo. It's a little bit more, it's got some laced riffs in this album that I like. It's a little bit different than some of the earlier stuff they had did from this time. It's Cannibal Corpse with a slight different flair on it. The only thing about this album, why I would put it at 5, is as the album goes on, it kind of loses me toward the back half of the album, but it's still a great album. 3 songs. I Will Kill You is a fucking brutal ass opener. I love that song. Blood Drenched Execution's a fucking brutal song as well. And my favorite song off this record is actually the instrumental, which is From Skin to Liquid. That freaking guitar riff that Pat O'Brien and Jack Owens got in this song, just it when it comes on, it makes me want to bang my head. It's just a great instrumental song for this record. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Still a great record. Coming in at 4, I'm going Gorguts Obscura. I'm not gonna lie, with the first time I ever heard this record, I fucking hated it. I thought it was just too weird, too far out there. And the more I ever listened to this record, the more it like pulled me in on how much crazy shit it did. And just, it just grew on me over time. It's got weird time signatures. It's got thrown off guitar tones. The bass is jumping around like a fucking kangaroo throughout the whole album. But it's hard to explain, but it's just so interesting to me, this album. I think Luke LeMay, he sounds frantic on this album, and he sounds distressed at times. Some of the growls that he does on here, it's kind of creepy in moments. But yeah, while I think it's an influential record, sometimes I feel it's a little bit tad overrated, because I see some people just like freaking worship this album like the ground this album walks on. I find it sometimes it's a little bit too long for me. Sometimes when I'm listening to it, I just got to skip through because it's like going on a little bit too long. But it's still a great album. 3 songs, really, I would say you have to listen to this record all the way through. You can't just listen to 3 songs on Obscura, because it's just, it works together as a whole than individual songs. But Ratuous Grief is a great song. The Art of Somber Ecstasy is a great song. And Earthly Love, I think that's the best song on this album. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. And I'd give it a strong 8 out of 10 for its uniqueness of this record. Coming in at 3, Nile, Amongst the Catacombs. Great debut album from Nile. I love the brutality of this record. I just really recently got into Nile a few years ago, and the reason why is because I kind of judged the book by its cover. I thought that they were kind of a little bit like mainstream, because I've seen a lot of people talk about them, and like the Egyptian thing kind of didn't like sit with me too well. But the first time I ever heard Nile, I was like, fuck, was I wrong about them? And this is probably one of their best records in my opinion. Just fucking the gutturals on here are so good. And I'm kind of going against Ralph, the interludes on here, they kind of take me away from this album a little bit. That's what I found, in my personal opinion, was the weaker part. Not all the interludes, but some of them. And 3 songs, Beneath the Eternal Oceans of Sand, which is the last song on this album, is great. Bara Edu, I'm gonna fuck this name all up because these names are fucking all over the place. But the second song on the record, and then I tied it with the first song, Smashing of the Atayu. I think that's a fucking great opener. It's just so brutal. And my favorite song off of here was The Howling of the Jinn, which is a great song off this record. So I would give that record a 9 out of 10. Great record, but just comes here at number 3. Now, these last 2 were really hard for me. I went back and forth on these last 2 for a good little while, and it kind of hurt me to put this one at 2, but I'm going Formula's Fatal to the Flesh by Morbid Angel. I've said it before, but Morbid Angel is my favorite death metal band. It's one of the first death metal bands I ever got into, and I pretty much love all their albums except that one dog shit album that I don't talk about. But it's the first album with Steve Tucker, and I think he was a good replacement for David Vincent at this time. This is definitely a better album than Domination. I know some people wouldn't agree with that. Ovi, I don't think he agrees with that. But I think this album like crushes Domination. The album is about destruction of mankind, and fucking Steve Tucker sounds like he's hating everybody on this record. It starts to get melodic toward the end, and I kind of like that a little bit about this record, because it's pretty much brutal Morbid Angel throughout the whole first half of this record, and then the last little bit is just straight up fucking melodic tones, especially when Trey does Hymn to a Gas Giant, which I do like that song. It's weird, it's kind of psychedelic type, but I really do like it. I think it's a very interesting song. But the one thing I fucking really hate about this record is, one thing I don't like about Morbid Angel, and I'm not scared to say it, is that I fucking hate their interludes. And this record ends with 3 in a row. And it, oh man,
That's true.
Fuck, man. I was like, man, this album is so good. If this album would have like, I would just end it at the last song. But man, if you would have 3 killer songs on the rest of this record, it could be number 1. It'd probably be number 1 for me. But Heaving Earth and Bill Sag is great songs. I tied those for number 3. I'm about to fuck this name up again. 2. Number 2 is Yul Mularachi. Yeah, it's a weird fucking name, but it's a killer song. And number 1, definitely Nothing Is Not. Great song on here. And the worst songs on here is the last 3 fucking songs. Oh man, I don't know why they did it that way. But Morbid Angel, my favorite death metal band, but they come in at 2 for here. And this last album coming in at number 1, I got it out the bargain bin at my local Salvation Army.
So John,
I'm happy it
Dude,
could be renewed.
I seen this record. I'd never heard of this band before, but I was like, what's this cover? Man, it's got to be brutal, right?
Yeah, somebody probably sent him a letter too. That's number 1, or you're going to be swimming with the gators down there.
No, but really, I'm being completely honest here. These 2 were when I first seen that we were doing these 6 albums. These 2 sat at the top, and really before I even went into listening to these albums, Morbid Angel was gonna be 1. But going back and listening to these albums, man, this album is just fucking evil to me, and it's the most heavy to me personally, the most brutal out of the 6 for me. These riffs on here are fucking nasty sounding. Daniel Corchado, he does a fucking magnificent job on this record. And he just sounds so nasty on it. I just like it when he goes bleh, and it just sounds fucking just nasty. Like listening to this album for this week, every time I listened to it, I had to take a bath because of how nasty these riffs were.
Hell yeah.
When I listen to doomy death metal, this has always been one of the ones that I went to even before I did this show, because this is just a doomy bastard of a record, and I mean that in the nicest way. And overall, it's probably my favorite Incantation record, even though all Incantation records are great. But it's just a no bullshit record. It's brutal, nasty, and it always has my attention throughout the whole record from start to finish. Just a brutal album. And 3 songs picking out of here: United in Repugnance, great fucking song. Number 2, I'm gonna go with the last track, United, Infinite Twilight, Majesty of Infernal Damnation. So it's a long song, but it keeps me invested the whole time. Definitely. And the riffs on here just have me head banging. And number 1 is definitely Disciples of Blasphemous Reprisal. Man, that song is fucking awesome. And I'm giving Morbid Angel, I would give this a 9.5 out of 10. It would be a 10 if it wouldn't be the last 3 songs, but this is definitely a 10 out of 10 album for me. And I'm trying not to sound like a kiss ass because John's here and I picked his album at 1, but definitely it's definitely number 1 out of these 6 for me.
No problem. The check's in the mail.
He's getting a free ticket to the Carolina Chainsaw Massacre. Ralph is paying a triple to get in.
Yeah.
He'll end up as goat feed now.
So we're gonna go to Mr. McEntee, and he had just sent me over a little message. We were talking about Chief Spires, and he is listed as a member of Blackfoot right now. So and there was another Spires playing drums, so he has to be a family member of the original.
He's super coincidental, but I doubt it, right?
I bet you he is. I bet you he's a family member to
Blackfoot. Well, I definitely have to go see Blackfoot and just say what's up to
then find out, hey, was that your dad played drums in the original lineup or what?
Plus I just haven't seen him for years. It's been over 20 years since I've seen.
Do you believe he is Native American?
Yeah, he's part Native American.
Oh, so that probably fills it right in there.
Yeah, and he was super great. I mean, he was one of those guys who always let bands stay at his place when he's in town. I mean, we hung out with him a lot back then. At that time, us and Niall were really tight, like super tight, you know. So
we're gonna let you. It's your turn. So fire away.
Okay. Well, I can't rate mine. So whatever
I'd like you to talk a little bit about yours anyhow.
Okay. Well, I'll go through the other ones and then I'll just try to make a quick babble on the Incan one.
Yeah.
Okay. The order. Okay. It's tough because 3 of these albums I really like. 2 of them I never really got into, and one of them's our own album, so that doesn't count. So my number 5 here is, and it kills me to say this because, it kills me to say it, but it's Death's Sounds of Perseverance. It's like I mean, I love Richard Christie and as his drum playing. If it was just his drum playing, I'd probably put it at number 1. But it comes with everything else, and I can't handle Chuck with those high vocals. I just can't. It just kills me when I hear it. I mean, I love Death, and I wanna be into it, but I don't want to hear him sounding like, you know, Creator style higher end vocal like that. You know, it's just you know, and the music too. It's just, to me, it sounds like the album should have just been what's that? Control Denied. Yeah, it should have been Control Denied. That's really what it was, you know. It was like Control Denied with Chuck like medium singing on it, like singing, like it was the highest he's ever done. It was on that one. And probably I think the best song off that album is isn't it the Judas Priest cover at the bonus track of that?
The
Painkiller.
Painkiller.
Yeah, that's the best song on the album. And actually his vocals sound good on that. If either it was just drums on that album, I'd really like it. Or if it was just only the Painkiller over and over again, then I would really like it, because I think they do that's a great cover. But yeah, so that's my number 5.
And you played with them. You played with them in Brazil on that tour, right? That was that album.
Yeah, Santiago, Chile. It was the Chile Metal Fest, and it was it's local band Necros, then us, and Cannibal Corpse, and Death, and it was I think it was around 6,000 people at the fest, and it was one of the most insane crowds we ever played to. I mean, there was nonstop toilet paper being thrown. I don't know where they got all this toilet paper from, but someone must have just like went to town at called janitors corners or something, took all the toilet papers, started throwing it all around the venue. And then also they were shooting off Roman candles inside. Actually, when I was on side of stage watching Death, and it was I was so drunk by that time. But anyway, I almost got hit with the Roman candle on side of stage from somebody getting shot. And there was actually another funny story about that show too, which I'm really embarrassed about. And I know it's on video somewhere. I was so drunk that during Death's show, I walked out on stage and congratulated Richard Christy for kicking ass on drums during their set. And I was just like, I don't even know what I was thinking, but I know that Jack Daniels was thinking for me, you know?
Yeah.
But at that time, I was so blown away that my good friend Richard Christy was actually playing in Death. And I was so proud of him that for some reason, that a drunken moment, I thought it was the right time to congratulate him, which I could have easily waited till after the show, you know? But yeah. So, but it was a great experience, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it was great. It was great to hang out with Chuck. Chuck was actually really good spirits at that time, and it was probably the most fun we had hanging out with Chuck was that time, because we played with Death a few times in the past, or just met him at shows and stuff, and he really wasn't so interested in talking. But this time, it just seemed with Richard Christy there to be kind of an icebreaker and everything. And I think, Chuck, I mean, I don't know Chuck well enough, but I think Richard Christie's niceness rubbed off on Chuck or something, because Chuck was definitely way nicer after jamming with Richard Christie. Because Richard Christie, if you guys don't know, is probably the nicest person you'll ever meet. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. He's the nicest person I ever met. I mean, especially in a band or anything. And an amazing drummer. It's phenomenal. I mean, if Richard Christie doesn't like you, or you don't like Richard Christie, there's something wrong with you, because he makes it almost impossible. The only things that really annoys Richard Christie is payphones, because he says they steal your money, and he's really paranoid about exhaust fumes in a van while parking and sleeping in it. But besides that, it was really great. But we had a lot of fun touring. I could go on forever about how great it was to have, because he played with us on the Infernal Storm tour on drums, and it was just great stories are nonstop. But to make it quick, Gorguts is my next pick, number 4. I love Gorguts, and I love Luke. Luke is also one of the coolest guys in freaking metal. Every time I see him, it's like a family reunion or something. For me, this album is just too technical. I didn't get it when it came out, and I get it more now, but it's just not my thing. I really like the first 2 a lot, and the stuff he's been doing recently has been better. But this period for me just was a little much for me personally. But I appreciate the album a lot, because I think it was really pushing boundaries that weren't really around in the scene back then. I think it opened up a lot of doors to a lot of the more technical and eclectic type death metal bands out there. So I think it has an important place in metal history. But personally, for my taste, it's not my cup of tea. One thing after revisiting the album, which is, I don't know if it's anybody else picked up on this, And I think it's coincidental, to be honest with you, but there's riff wise, there's moments where it reminds me of Immolation, like newer Immolation.
Yeah,
But
I thought about that today.
It's really strange because Immolation didn't sound like this when Gorguts was doing it. I mean, this sounds more like later, like I would say, I don't know, maybe post 2010 Immolation, maybe, or maybe a little bit earlier. It's hard to say exactly, but I just noticed, I listened to it, like, huh, some of those chords are kind of the same. And like, I think it's just the abstract chords or something, but they're definitely, I think we're on a similar brainwave as far as getting that atmosphere with the music, you know. But for Immolation, I think for me, I like it more with that style, just because the songs flow together better with that. You know, this was definitely more crazy. But I was really blown away when I heard this some of those stuff. I was like, oh shit, that sounds a lot like Immolation. You know, like its own way, but it would be like only pieces of it or something. Okay, my number 3. This is a tough one, but I have to go with Gallery of Suicide. I love this album. I think it's great. I love the fact that it does have more Doom stuff in it. The instrumental on here is amazing, and it was so great when they played this live and they opened up with instrumental on this tour. It was just perfect to watch Cannibal Corpse venture a little bit into the doomier and more darker side of stuff. And yeah, and a bunch of songs here are great. I mean, I Will Kill You is such a good song. I mean, there's so many great songs on the album. I think I love Gallery of Suicide. It's probably up there with my favorite Chemical Corpse sounds. Probably a top 3 for me, actually. And I'm also a super big Corpse Grinder fan. I mean, I think Corpse Grinder gave that band the freedom and life that it needed after Chris Barnes just sucking like beyond belief for so long. And the proof is in the pudding, because after he did, you know, after he left Cannibal, Chris Barnes' vocals just been going terribly downhill after that. And Corpse Grinder just keeps stronger and stronger as time goes on. And you know, I mean, I think people accepted his crappy vocals on the first couple Cannibal albums, but I think they sucked then. I actually hated Cannibal Corpse for a while because of Chris Barnes' vocals. I just couldn't stand him, and plus he was a douchebag on top of it, which didn't help. But you know, what was it? Well, it's just the truth. I'm just telling. What's that?
He's gonna block you on Twitter.
I'm so bummed. No, dude, Chris Barnes has been pissed off at me since like the beginning of time. You know, I think he had a complex because I played a Mortician in the band that he tried to copy vocal wise and failed miserably at. But that's my opinion. But you know, once Corpse Grinder joined the band, it was like, to me, the whole Cannibal Corpse thing like made sense. Like all those old songs when they played them live, I was like, oh wow, I do like these songs. I just realized it was just the vocals that were killing it for me. And I'm a low vocalist and I love low vocals, but I don't love low vocals that just suck, you know, or like no power to it, no feeling to it or nothing. And I think you know, Chris Barnes embraces all that. Anyway, yeah, I kind of went off on a Chris Barnes rant, but it's impossible not to, because he is really, really the essence of someone who's a real douchebag. In my opinion, at least. So yeah, but Gallery of Suicide is an amazing album. I love it. I think I love the songs on it. I love the sound of it. I love, like I said, the Doom stuff. It's great. Nile is my next one on the list, number 2. This album, the Nephren Ka, is their best stuff. It really is. I mean, Ramses Bringers of War was good too, but it's just an EP, not enough. But this is their best stuff. I mean, it has the most diversity in the songs. The feeling is just amazing. Everyone in the band is on fire. There's something special about this album. I mean, they're still a good band, but they're more caught up in the whole technical thing, and sometimes they miss some of the feeling that they have on this album. This album really, I think it's maybe, you know, it has a technicality to it and the cool twisted stuff to it, but just has a lot of good feeling to in the songs and stuff like that. So yeah, it's my number 2, and my number 1 is Morbid Angel, Formulas Fatal to the Flesh. It's one of my favorite albums in death metal. I listen to the album a lot. It's been on my playlist almost forever. I never, since it came out, I love this album. It's probably my second favorite Morbid Angel album. My first is, I would say, is Abominations of Desolation, then this, and then maybe Altars of Madness or something. Or those 3 are like interchangeable in my opinion, because they're all great and they all have different vocalists and stuff. But yeah, I was so happy when I heard Formulas Fatal to the Flesh, because there's just some rage on that album that they were missing on Domination. Even though Domination is still a good album, but this one felt like they were back to closer to an Altars vibe or something like that. Like I just felt like Trey was really fucking pissed when he wrote this album. I really wanted to prove that the band had power after maybe after Dave Vincent leaving or something. But it's a great album. And it's true. I mean, Steve did a great job in this album. It was big shoes to fill, because Dave Vincent is one of the best vocalists in death metal. So, and Steve was able to come in and just crush it. It was great. We toured with him on that. And I was actually on some of those dates on a tour. And Morbid Angel was like, they were so amazing every night. It was unbelievable. It blew my mind how perfect they were every night, and they weren't playing to, clicks and all these things to make it sound perfect. They were just so on it. I mean, they had Eric Rutan on guitar, and Steve Tucker, and then Pete and Dobles. They were all. It was just mind blowing. Yeah, it blew my. I couldn't even take it. But I was so happy to witness all those songs every night on that tour. It was one of our greatest tour members, and there's also a bunch of crazy stories with us on that tour too, which I can get into one of these days. But as far as for Incan, to try to make it super quick, Diabolical Conquest album was a point in our career where a lot of people didn't believe in us and believe that we can continue after some of the stuff that happened. It was kind of like our Formulas Fatal to the Flesh in a way, where we had to really kind of prove ourselves, and we just went into the studio with the attitude like, we're just going to give every bit of everything that we have and just go 100% balls out, get every feeling we're trying to get across in this album, just make it as sincere as possible, as real as possible. And then we got into the studio and it was a disaster, but it somehow fell together and made up a good album. It was a really difficult album to get through for a lot of reasons. One was that at that time, Kyle was struggling with drug addiction real bad, and he didn't even show up for the first day of the studio because he was still trying to recover from a binge. So it started off really stressful. Daniel was not comfortable in the recording situation. I don't think he's ever recorded in a professional studio in this way before, where everything was under a microscope. So he felt really uncomfortable. And myself, I was just stressed out of my freaking mind the whole time because, the album was super important for us to really kick ass on it, and just it was a lot of insanity, but it was also a lot of fun too. I mean, playing with Daniel Crociato at that time was a blast, and he really proved himself. I mean, it was funny because we didn't know what any of those songs, we had the lyrics to the songs, but we never heard him sing the songs. We refused to sing the songs at practice because we were like, come on, dude, like we got to hear how the vocals are going to be. Like, he didn't want to do it because he's like, you're not gonna like how it sounds. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, just freaking do it. And so we could tell if we don't like it, we need to fix it or something, But he was really self-conscious about it because he knew Craig Pillard, people wanted to hear the real low of Craig Pillard. And Craig Pillard's an amazing vocalist, but Daniel was also good in his own right. And once we did the album and finish it or whatever, I think Daniel was super surprised that people took it as well as they did. I remember we sent it to Relapse. Relapse was just blown away by it, how good it sounded. And for some reason, Daniel felt really uncomfortable about it or something. It was just a really weird situation. We got along great. We were like best friends at the time, but at the same time, he was also just he felt like it wasn't the right place for him to be doing, vocals for Incantation, but somehow it worked, and it worked out great. And I'm grateful for that contribution and stuff like that. And we had many great nights hanging out with Daniel Corchado, eating Chips Ahoy cookies and stuff, because he was a big fan of those. And I was too. I mean, who doesn't like a good Chips Ahoy? But yeah. So yeah, that's my story.
And
Cool.
sticking to it.
Sticking to it.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
just happy people like the album. We were paranoid as fuck when it came out. Like we were like,
Mhm.
everyone's gonna hate it, but whatever. We like it, so fuck off.
Yeah. All righty. So where are we going next? Ed, you don't have to work tonight, right?
Nope, I'm off
All
tonight.
right. So I guess we will go to Norway and next and talk to Ovi. Then we'll go to Ed. We'll go to Sasquatch and we'll round up with me like the original plan. That was some interesting stuff, John. I would love to hear more of those stories. Maybe we'll just do an episode on that one.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Or one story at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
One insane story.
One insane story. I think everybody's gonna want to hear it tonight. Okay, Obi.
For me, I'm gonna start with number 6, and for number 6 for me it's gonna be Gorguts. The reason is that I haven't really listened to this album before. I love the 2 first albums, and I guess I didn't listen to this one, and I started to listen to it last week, and it's like it's way too short time. 1 week is way too short time to kind of devour this album.
Mm-hmm.
But it's chaotic. For me, it's like systematic chaos or something. It's like mental overload. You can't it's too much. That's why it's in there for me. Songs I liked Rancher's Grief, Illuminatus, and the first one, the one I liked the most was Clouded. Number 5, I will go with Cannibal Corpse. The album, like Miles said, is long. It's 14 songs. So after song number 9 or 10, you kind of is it done soon? I'm like, it gets a lot. It gets a lot to devour too. So it's like it's 14 songs in it. But the songs I really like though is Centuries of Torment. I really like that one, and Unite the Dead. And number 1 is the title cut. I really like that guitar on the title cut. And number 4 we have Death. I like Symbolic, I like Human, I like Individual Thought Patterns. I really like those albums. It's kind of a new style for them. This album though is, like Miles talked about, it's kind of forced. It doesn't sound like his heart is really into it. He sounds like he was to do something else. But beside the point, that's 3 songs I liked was Bite the Pain, Story to Tell, and Moments of Clarity. I really like the guitars. The guitars is really cool. Number 3, we have Morbid Angel. I'm gonna go back to Miles again. He's talked about Domination. I'm a Domination fan. I just like the atmosphere on that one. But on this one is kind of different. I like songs, and Miles, you should probably get the special edition, because then you get 40 interludes on CD too.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
No, what
you got the lava.
on what
Yes.
album? On
The
Formulas?
Yeah, there's a whole other isn't another CD, or is
That's
it just added
Heretic.
to the CD? I forget.
That's Heretic. That's the next not the next album, but the album before. It was Heretic, where they did the whole album with just the weird shit on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one too has a deluxe edition that has interludes.
Yeah,
But
fuck
they
that. I'll
started
never
with
get
this one
that.
album.
Yeah, I'll never get it. I'm
Yep.
good.
So the songs I like the best on this album is Hellspawn, of course, Nothing Is Not, and Invocation of the Continual One. I really like that song. That 9 minutes epic. It's just the guitar Trey does on that song is mind blowing.
That's like a whole
Yes.
bunch of demo songs that they put together and made that one song. Like
Yeah,
they put it all together to make that song. It's pretty
Yes,
cool.
some of those songs are from back in the demo days.
Yep.
If you listen to some of our super old live shows, you'll hear some of those riffs on there.
Riffs,
That's
yeah.
part of the reason what really was awesome to me when I heard that on the album. I was just like, that's so cool. They finally took this old riff from this song and they, there were lots of nods back to the early days, which I thought was really great. But I'm sorry for interrupting. I get excited.
yeah, I
love
agree.
that
I
album.
agree. I like the first album, and I like the official first album. So yeah, I'm totally down with that. I really like the guy that played bass on the first album, the one that get into Nocturnus or quit the band for reasons,
Yeah,
kind of personal
with Gino,
reasons, I
right?
guess.
Mike
Yeah,
Browning.
I would kind of understand if that happened to me too. I would kind of like get out of there. Number two, I have a band I haven't really listened that much to, and because it's probably just technical blah blah, and it's not my style, but it's Nile again, like Miles. I was wrong. But the first album for Nile here is like, it's like, wow. I'm like, this is good stuff. What have I been doing up to now? As for songs, I really like the Howling of the Djinn.
Mhm.
Number two, the Ramesses, Bringer of War, and the song I really liked the most was Serpent Headed Mask. And for number one, I guess my story about this band. I started back when I was, I guess, 14, 15, and most brutal thing I've heard so far was like Metallica, Megadeth, and Testament and stuff. And there was like a older buddy of mine, and he's like, "You think that's hard stuff?" And he put on Mortal Throne of the Nazarene to me. I was like, "What in the Sam Hill is this?" It became like Metallica became like pop afterwards. It kind of changed my view of brutal. But beside the point,
They
so you
did
can
become pop in the 90s, Metallica. You're not wrong.
That's true. Yeah.
But Incantation is special to me because it's what introduced me to death metal. It's introduced me to the underground, you could call it, like beneath the surface of what everybody else know. If you ask them who they are, like who, because people like commercial stuff. But it opened the world for me for the underground and for the real metal. And this album is no different than the other albums. It's just as good. Songs I really like is Disciples of the Blasphemous, number three, and Unheavenly Skies I really like, but my favorite one is Shadow of the Ancient Empire. I'm like, good stuff.
Mhm.
Awesome.
So there we go. That's good for me.
Yeah,
All
good
right,
taste.
so Obi, I guess overseas check in the mail from John.
Yes. Yeah. I'll have to do a money wire to you.
Or free ticket to the Carolina Chainsaw Massacre if you can
Yeah.
make it.
Yeah, it's just fun how much similar I had to Miles with like the experience of the albums. It's kind of cool to listen to, because when he was introducing the albums, I was like, has he read my notes or what's the deal?
He stuck in your house last night.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I seem to do that a lot.
You guys
I'm
are
spying on y'all when y'all not
You guys
looking.
are metal brothers from across the seas.
Yeah, that's we definitely are.
Spying
Yes.
on y'all all the time. I'm watching what y'all do.
He's got Alexa.
Electric Eye.
Cool. So we're gonna move over to my center square from Armageddon Productions. We got Mr. Ed Farsley, and as Obi calls him, Evil Ed.
Nice.
What's going on, guys? So I've got a somewhat different take of these albums. To be quite frank, Not my favorite albums from these bands at all. There's only one of these albums that I really love. So we'll get started. Sixth album for me is Gorguts Obscura. Love the first album, really like the second album. Just can't get into this album at all. Just too technical, too out there, too chaotic. Appreciate what they were trying to do, especially at that time in death metal, but I just really can't get into it. A couple songs I do kind of like, Nostalgia and Clouded. Cloud is definitely a good song. Not as the rest of the album, in my opinion. See, number 5, Nile. Amongst the Catacombs. Never been a big Nile fan either. Loved the band when it first came out, the demo, the first album. Then after that, it just couldn't really get into the band. This album reminds me too much of Deicide. Everybody knows how I feel about Deicide. The vocals, don't like them. A lot of short songs, and just not really my thing. I'm going to say this name wrong. Barra Edizazu. More structure than most of the songs, instead of just a constant blast, so I appreciate that. And Stones of Sorrow reminds me of Old Celtic Frost, the Megatherion album. So those two songs I do like. The rest of the album, not really my thing, just kind of monotone in my opinion. Fourth album, Morbid Angel, Formulas Fatal to the Flesh. I love the first two Morbid Angel albums, Abomination and Altars. After that, for me, the band kind of dropped off. This album is a good album with Steve Tucker. Dave Vincent, of course, is a great vocalist, as is Steve Tucker, but just not really my thing. Songs just don't really do it for me. I do not like the instrumental pieces at all either. I'm totally with you guys on that one. Couple songs I do kind of like, Covenant of Death. Chambers of Dis is a good song, but definitely brutal. And Hellspawn for, the nostalgia part of it, the rebirth. Next album, Cannibal Corpse, Gallery of Suicide. Love Cannibal, love the early albums. As much as I definitely agree with John that the vocals are a hell of a lot better without what's his name in the band. But in my opinion, this is a weaker album musically than the first few albums. It's more formulaic and just kind of basic, sticking to the formula, the Cannibal Corpse formula, which is not bad. It just doesn't bring anything special or anything new to the table. Dismembered and Molested, great song. Sentenced to Burn, very subdued for Cannibal Corpse, but I definitely appreciate it. On Every Bone Broken, that song I really like. That's definitely the best song on the album, in my opinion. Fifth album, Death, The Sound of Perseverance. The first 3 Death albums are, of course, classic, flawless, fantastic. Then the band started getting more technical. Chuck was trying to do more things, and each album after that sounded a little bit different. This album is the 8th and the last album. Rest in peace, Chuck. Can't believe it's been 22 years. Jesus. Wow. Yeah, it's fucking crazy. This album, has another new lineup for Chuck, going in a different way. I haven't listened to this whole album in a while. Didn't like it at all when it first came out. Didn't like it for years. Appreciate it a little more now, listening to it older. Again, I appreciate what Chuck was doing. He was branching off into his new band, Control Denied. So it had a lot of influence there. The vocals definitely changed up a lot. But I do kind of like his high vocals. I like the style. A couple of songs on here. My battery's going again. A couple songs on here I do like. Moment of Clarity and Bite the Pain. 2 great songs. Pain, I really like the cover too. I love Chuck's screaming vocals on that song. Just really, really killer cover. And Richard Christie is, like John said, a hell of a great guy, super nice guy, and a great drummer, and brought a really good dimension to that, to the sound. For me, top, not just because John is here, but the best album on this list by far for me is Incantation Diabolic Conquest. I love this album. Definitely one of Incantation's best albums. Best album on this list, on this night. Best album cover by far as well. Brutal album cover. And just a brutal as fuck record from start to finish. For me, I feel 5 out of the 6 bands that we're talking about tonight were kind of on their decline at this point, or just stagnant. in a lot of ways. Where Incantation, we're getting tighter, more brutal, incorporating and building on their influences and their peers. Bands like Morbid Angel, Autopsy, Immolation, and Incantation just carved out their own brutal style and really took it all the way on this album. John was saying they were struggling and didn't know what they were doing with this album. They were kind of concerned, for how people would take it. I think it's fucking great. I think it was brutal as hell when it came out, and it's brutal as hell now. For me, all the songs are great. Daniel's vocals are fantastic. Disciples of Blasphemous Reprisal, fantastic song. Impending Diabolic Conquest, brutal opening track, thoroughly brutal mix, ultra heavy riffing, super tight blast, just perfect song. And best song on the album, and I think the best song in Incantation's career, Unto Infinite Twilight, Majesty of Infernal. I love long songs, and this song is just perfect. It goes in a lot of different ways. It's brutal as hell. It goes slow, and it's just a perfect song. Doesn't get tired listening to it. 16 and a half minutes long. It's fucking classic, but absolutely epic song. Very ambitious undertaking that is well executed, pays off big time. That album gets a 10 in my opinion. Great job. So there you have it. Those are my albums.
Thank you. Thank you.
One thing that he brought up that I thought was something to mention is that the Diabolical Conquest album was it was we were very unsure of ourselves, but that's part of what is cool about it. It's cool when you do stuff and you're just like, this isn't trendy. This is everything like you're not supposed to do now. Every band was like trying to be this super tight thing, and we were like, we want to have that, we want to have us come through on the album. But you do get, as a musician, I'm sure anybody here as a musician knows, so you get a little nervous at the same time because you're just like, you're putting every part of your being into this thing, and then you're hoping it does good, but even if it doesn't do good, you could be proud of it. But still, there's an uncertainty about it. But if you're like almost too confident with it, I think that is a negative in a way to an album, because you don't want to just go into it and be like, oh yeah, I know I could write these great songs. You want to push yourself each time to maybe go a little too far, like it's like you want more of it to go too far. And it was actually, that reminds me, because a lot of those albums in this time period were super tight. Everybody was really embracing the Pro Tools and the quantizing of music and making everything perfect. And we were like totally not on that page. And we actually were the outcast of a lot of bands back then, because a lot of these bands were kind of looking down at us because we were doing pretty well, but we weren't following any of the rules that all the other death metal bands were kind of following at that time, But I mean, that's just the way it's supposed to be in fucking metal. You're not supposed to follow rules. And it just when Ed brought that up, it just sparked that thought in my head. And I thought, I didn't think Ed would like this album that much necessarily, because maybe it was too far away from like my old Revenant days, because I know he was a big fan of that. So like the further I get away from that, maybe he's just like, oh no, go back to Degeneration or something, or Descend into Decadence,
No. Always a place for Incantation.
Ed, you forgot an album.
Did I?
Oh
Yeah, Deicide came out with an album that year.
Well, if you like long
You're adding
songs,
wait a minute, you're adding a seventh album?
No, you forgot the Deicide album.
Oh,
We're
he
talking
did.
about.
Oh yeah, he doesn't. Yeah, well, we didn't have that on.
I mean, if you like long
which Deicide
songs,
album came out that time?
No, I'm
Was
just
it Once
messing.
Upon
I
a
don't
Cross
think
or something?
Deicide had an album. that
There
year.
wasn't one in '98, I believe. Was
No,
it?
Serpent to the
this
Light
one is
came out in
7.
'97.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Because we would have had Deicide in this battle if there was one, I'm sure.
Too bad.
Well,
Too
if you
bad
like
for Ed.
long,
Or too
like
good,
long
whatever you look.
incantation songs,
What's that?
if you like
Obi?
long incantation songs, you should listen to our album that I find fantastic, and that's Blasphemy from 2002, I believe. That's last song there is the longest song I think I've heard of incantation. is Outro Part 1, is it?
Oh yes. Yeah, we did outro and outro part 1 as an intro to the outro.
Yeah.
And we did it for the exact, we put the outro at the end of the length of the CD, and we just put the intro, all just filled up that space with intro. So it's like 20 minutes of intro, just to be dicks, you know? And then you wait for the intro and then the album's over.
I was about to
But
say,
that's-
did y'all do that just to be a dick?
Yes, exactly. And every album that we do, it's always like you just want to do something to be a dick, you know, like just say fuck you, you know, in there.
great.
Because if you don't have that fuck you in there, then it's not real metal, you know.
It's the
Yeah.
New Jersey coming out of John.
Yes. Yes,
All
exactly.
righty. So Denny, who is our scorekeeper tonight, and he doesn't have to get the score yet. Oh, you can give it the very end. But if you,
Oh,
I
you
want
don't want me to give you an update right now?
no, wait until we're done. We'll keep everybody in suspense.
All right, cool.
Of course, the scorekeeper could be getting bribed too by John. I mean, John's not going to let him play in Carolina if he doesn't, doctor things up a little.
All right, let's go with this. So my number 6 album, it's my countryman, Gorguts. And I had the pleasure of met Luke a few times. You see, there's 2 types of metalheads in Quebec. There are guys that builds a building, and there's people that destroy the building, right? Gorguts are builders. Like, to listen to this album and make sense of it, you need like an Excel spreadsheet, a calculator, and a fucking scientist, because it is so complex and it's so fucked up. Like, I don't have the intelligence to comprehend what is going on. It's that crazy. And even like from a playability as a guitar player, this is like some of the most difficult metal to like cover and to play. It's really hard to reproduce. And Luke, he's that guy. He loves like prog rock, and he likes that like Gentle Giant, and he likes that type of music. And you can tell in this is the way that he does things. It's just, I need to be in a perfect kind of like settings and mood to go and listen to this. But it's impressive. But it's not my go-to when if I want to listen to Gorguts, right? It's not going to be my go-to. Funny notes, well, not so funny notes about this album. Just after, like, there was a band member in Gorguts. His name was Steve Erdl. He passed away since, but he reached out at some point. He reached out to me and just wanted to tell me like how much like he liked some of the music I did in the past, and just wanted to sit down. So we went to a bar downtown Montreal, had a beer, and he was telling me the story about like how like he was had to like learn to play these songs, and how like difficult it was, and how many hours they had to go and try to memorize the complexity. So yeah, number 6, Gorguts. But hey, number 6 for all these albums. It's not that it's like still has its greatness and great moment. It's just that
true.
it is what it is. But what a fucked up band, right? And if you guys would know where they're from, it's even more obscure. They're from a small town, south of Montreal. There's like maybe 50,000 people, and they all listen to that shit. They like, like for them, like Meshuggah is like they're like Justin Bieber, like like
Wow.
they're just crazy people. So that's my number 2. Number 5 is Nile. For me, like you see, I think I'm like maybe against the grain when it comes to Nile. I really like some of their newer, like not maybe newer stuff, but I like a lot of the stuff that they did in the early like 2000s and things like that. Nile is another band similar to Origin. Like I will go in a mood, and for a week I'm gonna only listen to Nile, and I'll go like albums to albums to albums. And then like, but I like the music. I like the concept. I like the performance. I like the sound. There's like, uh, there's so many good riffs. And this album is just like somehow it's never one of the one I will go to. I go to some of the other albums, but if when Nile comes to town, I go see the show. I love the band. It's just like for the sixth album, they were my number 5. Then after that, I went with that, and similar to John, I guess, like to me, like that was like the continuity of Sodom, like and the Sign of Evil. Like when I first listened to that, like it was Sodom, Death, Battery, and they were in that niche, and I love it. And I just like Zombie Ritual, and like even Leprosy was still like, this was weird. And I met Chuck also like in Toronto when he was playing with Slaughter, and very weird, very weird vibe of a guy. Like he's just not like very like, because I was kept saying him, are you sure you're from like Florida? Like
maybe socially awkward he was or something.
yeah, like it's just like and the guys from Slaughter are so like Canadian beer drinking hockey,
Yeah, they're A personalities.
so loud. Like you could hear them talk like fucking 3 blocks away. They were so loud. And then they're with this guy that's just like, like I'm like, how does he fit in? Like I don't understand, right? But yeah, so and there is some like element of like definitely some element of like almost like more thrash metal on this album, like where there's the different departure, the complexity starting to settle in. But like I and you know what, like after all these years, and I really rarely like go back to listen to the album, but I have like I love the instrumental Voice of the Soul. Like it's always in my playlist somewhere, it will play, right? But to me it's just not the go-to. I want that to be like that, like dirty and anyway, I'm going to Death to All on Friday, and I'll see Robin in person, so it's
cool.
It's gonna be
Good
great.
stuff.
We'll take some pictures, send to you guys.
The Suffocation's on that tour too, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. After that, I went with Cannibal Corpse. Not my favorite Cannibal Corpse. Nothing wrong with it. It's just like, to me, like it was still not. I guess like I don't know. I didn't know Chris Barnes personally. I could almost tell he was not a nice person, but like I didn't know.
Yeah,
him.
it's better. Your life's better not knowing him. Trust me.
Well, like like because these guys were from Buffalo, right? And for me,
Yeah.
like my go-to arguments with anybody is like, hey, you want to fight? Let's put some skates on. Go play hockey, right? But like nobody does it anyway. But yeah, they were. Like I think they were in the transition. It's more like in kind of like, okay, album tour. They had to change and stuff. I love, like, similar to you, John, I do love like Corpse Grinder. I think he's fucking phenomenal. His neck is the size of my waist. But it's
He earned it.
Yeah.
The headbang.
But it's for me on this album, it's definitely not one of the album that I go to often. There is some great moments, but it's my number 4 album. Then after that, it's Incantation, Diabolical Conquest, and I have a good story for this album. So the 90s for me, like I felt like all the bands that were like coming out was all sounding like what like I used to envision what aggression should be. Like to me, like, I listened to Altar of Madness and like Entomb, Left Hand Path, and like I'm like, oh, this is it. This is what I wanted, right? And so I like all this music so much. I just stopped playing music. But the 90s, like, people don't talk enough about how much good death metal and metal came out in the 90s. People are stuck like 80s, yeah, fucking, Number of the Beast and like Dio, Holy Diver. Yes, it's awesome, but you gotta check those a lot of the stuff that came out in the 90s. And for me, like, Incantation is one of those bands, like, kind of fell in love with that sound, like that
Yeah.
like, that New York death metal sound, right? And the funny story, so in the 90s, like, I was definitely on a decline, mentally, socially. So I got myself in a situation that I was not able to like listen to music for a long period of time. I'm not gonna go into too much details, but let's just say I was not able to listen to metal. So Diabolical Conquest is the first album I listened to when I was able to again listen to music, when it came out in 98. So like, and I had these older cousins, like I had two sets of cousins. I had two cousins that got me into like Sabbath and Deep Purple and like Frank Marino and Jimi Hendrix and all that shit. And I got like another set of cousins that they were the one bringing me like, hey, listen to this band, it's called Cathedral. Listen to this band, it's Incantation. Listen to this, it's Mayhem. Listen to this, it's. They always looked like every week they would bring new shit, like new music, right? So when I was able to listen to music again, my cousin came to get me where I was, got to his house, and the first album I listened to was Diabolical Conquest. For me, I felt like, and I don't know, John is right here. I'm gonna try to go in his head, but like, it's almost like Incantation had 3 albums in a row. Like almost 2 years apart. Then there was a period of time where there was a period where nothing was released, right, due to all kind of different things. So I think I felt like John had something to prove. And it's just like, I find that there's maturity in his anger, in the way that the riffs are constructed, especially on Disciples. Like I can feel like that. I can feel like that, like anger, but also like more like a growing as a songwriter and be able to produce what is mine. Like I feel like Incantation, like it is went in two phases, where first is like the songwriting start improving over and over, like, sorry, not improving, but what John had in his mind, he was able to project it better. And later in their career, now he was able to, like, sound wise, to like get better and better. But yeah,
Evolve. I think the word you're looking for is evolve.
yeah, it's like, it's I don't know, maybe I'll talk about it, is right here, but like that's all, like, to me as a listener, even Shadows, a lot of those songs, like, it just like, it's heavy, it's angry, but there's maturity to the songwriting, which I like.
Well, I think at a certain point, songwriting wise, for me, I went from just writing riffs and trying to organize them together to sitting down and starting to really think about the overall thing I'm trying to project with the song. And that is part of what a lot of musicians, I think, start to happen. They get this extra sense where they start thinking in music instead of just thinking in riffs. Like when I was early on with Incan, and when I was playing at Revenant, I'd write riffs and then I would try to write a song around the riff that I came up with. But at a certain point, you're like, what's the feeling I'm trying to get across? And let's make the riffs on top of that project that feeling that you're looking for. So yeah, that's true. That's probably Diabolical is probably close to the beginning of where I started thinking a little more. I mean, I did that in the earlier stuff too, but it was just, by the time Diabolical came out, it was just more, it's one of those things, you grow as a songwriter and you start to have it as a way of a personal expression and not just like I play guitar and I come up with this cool riff kind of thing. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but us musicians kind of know, I think, after a while that you just know what's the right thing to do is, or you just know your feelings are coming across in your guitar. It's not just the notes. It's like an emotion.
Yep.
Well, it's just nice to see and nice to be privy of your mindset as we went and listened to that. So yeah, great album. And then number one for me is Morbid Angel. I was upset when I guess like David Vincent left. Like I don't know why. I like when bands stick together. Like I like the fucking original lineups, and like I'm too emotional about shit. Like Black Sabbath came to Vancouver without Bill Ward. Like fuck it, I'm not going. I'm like true to Bill Ward. Then somebody gave me a free ticket and I went anyway. But yeah, so I think for Morbid Angel, it was just the adjustment to Steve Tucker and all that. But at the same time, like, holy fuck, like some of the riffs on that album is so good. It's just like, and I love Morbid Angel so much. Like I like most of their albums, not all their albums, but I can find something I like on all their albums. And it's funny, like we're talking about the 3 fucking like instrumental at the end of the album, and like why like Trey keeps wanting to push that shit. I do the same for Aggression. Like I will go to the jam space and I'll bring an intro, and the guys in the band who are much younger than me will be like, hey, when's the fucking song starting? and why do we have to listen to this shit? Right? So they filter that shit out. If I would have like full control, I would probably have like 5 little like instrumental per, and then people would just be like, skipping through it. But I aside that stuff, some of them like, I guess like Miles a bit like that. Some of them are just annoying to me. Like just replace that shit like with like some good fucking like metal. And the song title of these of these instrumental are almost like Blue Oyster Cult level fucking weird. Like what's a gas giant? Like or like Hymnos Ritualis de Guerra, like like I know Spanish and shit, but like Ascent Through the Spheres, like it's really like very Blue Oyster Cultish, like kind of like way out there. But yeah, so number one album, Formulas Fatal to the Flesh. Every Morbid Angel album always have something. Even the worst one they did, they had a couple songs on there like Nevermore, Blades for Baal. I think that was really good. The dance album they the dance album they
Yeah,
did.
it's a rough one.
Kill a cop, kill a cop, kill a cop. Oh,
Yeah, come on.
What the fuck?
That's a little tough. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I love Morbid Angel, but that was
I love
that's a
Morbid
little
Angel,
tough
man.
pill
That
to
fucking
swallow.
hurt my heart.
Yeah. So that's it. This is it. Now
Awesome.
it's Mr. Keeler time.
Ooh, I think this has been a marathon episode, but it's been fun to sit and listen to everyone's point of view. Of course, it was an honor having John on as being in Incantation and talking about one of his classic albums. And guess it's time for me to give my votes. I think a lot has been said about all these records already, but my number 6 is also going to be the Canadian band Gorguts. I hadn't listened to this album in years, and I think it's a great album, but I'm echoing what a lot of you guys have said. So it takes a bit to really get into it.
It's a task. It's not an
It's a
album
bit
just
of a,
listen
yeah,
to on a
it's kind
party
of like
night.
a little bit of work, and just to grab into it and find a couple songs like Clouded I liked the song Nostalgia and kind of picked up off of it, but
Yep.
it's not an album I go to and listen to very often. Coming in at number 5, when I first started looking at this list and not really listening to anything and digging in, I thought that Death would be much higher up on this, but that Death album to me is the weakest of the catalog from my point of view. Spirit Crusher, and after I wasn't going to throw the cover in, but man, I agree with John McAtee. The Painkiller is probably the best song on there.
It really is.
It really
I
is.
hate to be
I'm
a
gonna
dick.
agree.
It's just my honest opinion.
And the Flush to the Power, is cool, but Because if I compare this to the heaviness of some of these other albums here, maybe, you know, I talked to Ralph about this earlier in the week. Is it really a death metal album? I don't know if it is. I guess
Oh,
Yeah.
it is a
The
death
drums
metal
alone
album.
make it a death. The drums alone make it a
Yeah,
death
the
metal album.
drums, yeah. So, but
It's a
song
stretch.
Scavenger is fucking
Mhm.
great.
I know that we did an episode on death and we talked about this album a little bit, and people want to dig back in. We did during the pandemic, we did a really good episode ranking the death albums, and we had Gene Hoglan on. We had a few of the guys on that episode. We lost somebody. We lost Denny. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
We
What's the
lost the scorekeeper? Oh
yeah,
no.
we need the scorekeeper. Or we're fucked.
Oh boy. So anyhow, I'll take hopefully he pops back in any second now. So that's number 5 for me. Number 4, I'm going with Morbid Angel. Covenant of Death, Prayer of Hatred. I like this album a lot, but you had to put it somewhere. It's in the list. Going to number 3 is Cannibal Corpse. I like the Sentence to Burn song a lot. Stabbed in the
Mhm.
Throat. I only put 2 songs down because I figured we were doing so many albums that I was kind of going with 2, which was fine. Other people picked 3 and other things. Going with number 2 is Incantation, United in Repugnance, the Disciples of Blasphemous Reprisal. I dig that, and I really dig the closer, which we all talked about, Beyond to Infinite, Twilight Majesty. What a long
Infernal
song, but
Damnation.
yeah, I messed up. I think I didn't write. Hey, the scorekeeper's back. Thank God. Here he is. We thought we were going to have to retape the whole episode and start over.
All good, dude.
But that closer is such a great song, and I'm number 2, and my number 1 is Nile, the first album. It's probably my favorite album by Nile. I love the Howling of the Djinn, the Ramses Bringer of War are my 2 tracks I picked from that. So those are my picks. And hey, I'm just a host here. That's the guy that sells records. So you guys from the bands are definitely the experts here. And I thank everybody for giving their time to the channel tonight. And it's time. Sasquatch, did you get my picks, or do I have to give them over to you? Were you able to hear?
I think I missed your. Just go again in sequence.
So,
Gorguts.
6 was Gorguts, 5 was Death,
Yeah.
4 was Morbid, 3 was Cannibal, 2 was Incantation, and 1 was Nile.
Okay, perfect.
But I know we lost you for a second. We got a little nervous. Like, we don't have the scorekeeper. Somebody's got the quick link notes.
All right. So at number 6, we have Gorguts Obscura.
Mhm.
Followed by we have a tie actually at
Yeah, let's
That's
get
4.
how many points did Gorguts get? Yeah, that
Gorguts got 13 points. Then we have a tie for number 3 and 4? No, 4 and 5.
yeah.
Cannibal with Gallery of Suicide and Death Sound of Perseverance. We have a tie. After that, we have a tie for 2 and 3. We have Nile and Morbid Angel
Wow.
at 29 points. We had 20 points for Cannibal and Death, and then Incantation wins. So John's got to send checks to everyone.
Yes.
36
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Diabolical Conquest winner
and-
tonight.
And everybody needs to go out and buy his latest album, since
Yeah, the
Incantation
Tricentennial
won.
Blasphemy.
The Tricentennial Blasphemy, a mouthful, but what a great set, and so much content in here. And it's just a great piece to own. So please go out to your record shop and pick it up.
And he's got a newer release since then. He's got the Split.
Oh yeah, the Blood Incantation. Just in case anyone gets confused, we have a Blood Incantation release too.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
But yeah. Cool. I'm happy that
So,
you guys like the money that I sent you.
I tell you what, it was an interesting. Who knew where this was going to go when we first set this up? I went a little crazy. the episode ran a little long because we were talking about 6 albums, and it was interesting to see what one was going to win. And John, maybe you did pay some people off, but I think we were all pretty honest tonight.
All right,
And-
everybody.
He did sweat, blood and sweat in the studio. That's why he got number 1.
All
And
right,
John-
everybody give
I-
their true ranking. Everybody give their real ranking
Yeah.
that we was all talking about where we put in King at
Well, we'll
6.
do that when we go up there. But John promised one insane story to
Yeah,
wrap
that's
it
true.
up tonight. Do you have one you could tell us?
One insane story.
What from that tour? From the
that
tour, you
tour,
were-
right?
Oh, what was it? The tour, which what the one with okay, well, okay, so we got a quick one since it's been a long episode. And I know if it wasn't Kyle, I wouldn't be able to probably say this stuff, but since it's Kyle, it's like he doesn't care. And that tour, Kyle was full on heroin junkie mode on that tour. And we were in Dallas, Texas. It was the last day of the tour. And we played Houston the night before. And after the show, he just disappeared. He actually went off with Wes Weaver, rest in peace. He plays an Imprecation. They both went on some kind of drug binge after the show, and we were waiting in in Houston for a while to get to the Dallas show. I finally got to the point where we just had to leave because we weren't going to make it to the show in time. And then we got to the venue, and that was before like cell phones and stuff. So we got to the venue. We were just like, we don't know where Kyle is, but he knew where
Yeah.
next show was. So we figured we'd just show up. Well, he ended up getting back to the venue, and Morbid Angel ended up finding him and drove him to the next show. He caused a lot of problems on the Morbid Angel tour bus. I don't even want to get onto that because he was, in junkie mode. But we got to the venue, and we start setting up merch at the merch table, and my friend Dieter was selling merch for Morbid Angel that time, and Kyle was by there setting up the merchandise, and Kyle set up a sign on the merch table saying that we'll trade merch for hard drugs.
Huh.
And then there were like these little kids coming to the show with like these like 15-year-old kids, and he'd ask him like, dude, you guys have any drugs? I'll get you some incantation merch for it. And and then my friend Dieter was just like, dude, what the fuck's Kyle doing? You gotta fucking stop him. He's like he's asking like 15-year-old kids if they have drugs on them and where to get drugs. And so that was that. And that night ended up being the same night that was last day of the tour. We drove home, and that's where we flipped over our van on the highway and almost died. And I still have my road rash cabinets, and it was a mess. It was a mess. Luckily, Rob Yench and what was it? Tom Stevens was doing vocals on that tour. They both flew from Dallas to wherever they were going, and it was just Kyle and myself driving back. And Kyle at that time thought it was a good idea to do some heroin while driving, and he ended up nodding out from the heroin and drove off the road and overcorrected to get back on. And when he overcorrected, the trailer jackknifed, and we flipped over on the highway and it exploded, and all of our equipment was like rolling down the highway. Like drums were literally rolling down the highway, and I was sleeping in the back. I smashed my head against like this little thing in the back or whatever. I was bleeding, but I'm like running down the highway trying to catch our gear, in bare feet, because I was like sleeping in the back or whatever. And there's like all glass on the highway and stuff. And it was really early in the morning, and I couldn't, Kyle's like, didn't even know I existed. He was just worried about getting rid of the drugs so the cops wouldn't bust him. So he's trying to throw them over the ledge there, throw the heroin away. And, I was just like, and then after he did that, he finally comes like, hey, oh shit, are you okay? Yeah, I'm doing fine. Just fine. It's great.
You're lucky you're alive after that one.
Yeah.
Used
And,
up one of your 9 lives, it sounds like to me.
And it was funny too, because when he had to go to the ER because he had glass all stuck in his back, because when he
Oof.
fell off, he smashed into the passenger side's window,
Hmm.
scraping against the highway, and the glass broke and like went into his back. And at the hospital, he kept telling him, I need morphine, I'm in pain. So of course, what do, they don't give him any morphine, because they're just like, you get some Tylenol 3, and then
Mhm.
they picked all the glass out of his back, almost trying to be a dick to him, because they knew he was a junkie, and they just wanted him to like suffer from it a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my story, just a little one.
That sounds it's quite the story, and I think it was a great way to end this episode. So the viewers that are still watching this episode, and I hope you all enjoyed it. So please talk about these records we talked about tonight in the comments and give us a rating in order of what you like, and we'll be back next week. I'm not sure what the subject is yet because I've been so busy, but we will be back next week, and we'll be talking about something that was an anniversary from 1 year. Denny came up with a good idea of first 4 albums. We might hit that this year too, like talking about some bands that released 4 great albums in a row and trying to rate those albums. So it might be an episode, something we're working on in the future. So we'll see you next time. Please take a moment if you like this channel, what we're doing. Of course, I put some concert clips up now. We do some talk. We do a little bit of everything, rock fantasy, and we will see you soon. If you're in the area for a metal show, we've got next Friday at the venue in Middletown at Clip Quinspin. It's a venue we built, and Rock Fantasy helps promote everything. We have a local band, Iron Cobra, and Chris Caffrey, who's been on the channel, is going to be stepping in and playing guitar with them that night.
Nice.
And the following week, on March 18th, we have Into the Void, a tribute to Black Sabbath at Quinspin. So we hope to see you all out there if you're in the
Can't
area.
we get Chris on the show again sometime?
Yeah, we could. I'll have to ask him. Yeah.
Been a while.
Yeah, we can talk some regular metal, and we'll get him on, because he wouldn't know anything about this one tonight, but for sure. All right, so we'll see you next time. Boom.